Episode 8. Colossians Cancels the Sabbath. The lie that Paul erased the Fourth Commandment series title. Sabbath Under Fire. Exposing the 8 lies that deny God's commandment. They say, Colossians 2 proves it. We're not to let anyone judge us about Sabbaths. They say, that means the Sabbath is gone, cancelled, fulfilled in Christ. And just like that, with one verse, twisted out of context, they try to erase a commandment written by the very finger of God. But it's time to expose this final deception. Colossians 2:16-17 proves that Sabbath keeping has been abolished. Let's read what it actually says, but this time in context. Colossians 2:16-17. Let no man therefore judge you in meat, or in drink, or in respect of an holy day, or of the new moon, or of the Sabbath days, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ. At first glance, it sounds like Paul is saying the Sabbath no longer matters. But stop, read carefully. This list, meat, drink, holy days, new moons, Sabbath days, is not the moral law of the 10 Commandments. It's the ceremonial law of the feasts, as laid out in Leviticus 23. Did you know there are 7 ceremonial Sabbaths in the Jewish calendar? Passover, unleavened bread. First fruits. Pentecost trumpets. Day of Atonement. Feast of Tabernacles. These were called Sabbaths, but they could fall on any day of the week. They required meat and drink offerings. They were shadows pointing to Christ. Colossians 2 is talking about those ceremonial Sabbaths, not the weekly Sabbath of the 4th commandment. How do we know? Because the Greek word used in Colossians 2 is plural, sabbaton, referring to multiple Sabbath observances in the ceremonial calendar. But the 7th-day Sabbath is unique. It was instituted in Eden, Genesis chapter 2:2-3, included in the 10 Commandments, Exodus 20:8-11, and never once called a shadow. In fact, the Bible clearly distinguishes between ceremonial Sabbaths and the weekly Sabbath. Leviticus 23:37-38. These are the feasts of the Lord, beside the Sabbaths of the Lord. Did you catch that? God lists the feast days, and then says they are beside, separate from, the Sabbaths of the Lord. So when Paul says not to let anyone judge you concerning ceremonial Sabbaths, he's not referring to the 4th commandment. He's referring to man-made judgments about feast observances, food rituals, and drink offerings tied to the ceremonial law, the very things Jesus fulfilled. But here's the deeper danger. If Colossians 2 abolished the weekly Sabbath, then it also abolished all morality. Because if you can erase the 4th commandment, then why not the 5th, or the 7th, or the 10th? It becomes spiritual anarchy. Let's be honest. Did Paul say, let no man judge you because the law was abolished, or because the man-made judgments of the Pharisees were out of line? Did he cancel the Sabbath, or protect Gentile converts from being condemned over ceremonial observances that Christ already fulfilled? Read the chapter again. Paul is warning against vain philosophy, legalism, and traditions of men, not God's holy, eternal commandments. He says in Colossians 2:14, blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us. That's not the 10 Commandments, it's the book of ordinances, the handwritten Mosaic laws placed beside the ark, Deuteronomy 31:26. So here's your final challenge. Show me one verse where the 7th-day Sabbath is called a shadow. Show me one verse in Colossians 2 that quotes the 4th commandment. Show me where Paul says the 10 commandments were nailed to the cross. You can't, because Colossians doesn't cancel the Sabbath. It confirms that Christ fulfilled the ceremonial law, but never abolished God's moral law. The Sabbath was never a shadow. It was and still is a sign, a seal, between God and his people. Ezekiel 20:20. Hallow my Sabbaths, and they shall be a sign between me and you, that ye may know that I am the Lord your God. That hasn't changed. And in the end, when all deception is exposed, there will be two kinds of believers: those who follow the commandments of men, and those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Revelation 14:12. Which will you be? Prove me wrong.